Every great discovery begins with one thing, a single thought. And if that thought is directed, nourished, and believed in, it becomes a reality. You see, the mind is not merely a passive receiver of experience. It is the active sculptor of experience. Each of us walks through life with a canvas in our hands and a brush made of thought. The colors we choose, the strokes we apply, the vision we hold, these all begin in the mind. Life does not shape us arbitrarily. We shape life through the disciplined control of our inner world. And today I want to speak with you about a truth that, once fully understood, can change everything. The truth is this: what we consistently think, we become. What we impress upon our minds with faith and emotion, we manifest. This isn't wishful thinking. It's the most powerful, immovable law I've ever known. Thought, when repeated with belief, becomes habit, and habit becomes character, and character becomes destiny. A few years ago, I was reading a study about two men who began their lives in the same place, same income, same neighborhood, same education level. 30 years later, one was a multimillionaire full of peace and vision. The other was bitter, broke, and stuck. What separated them? Not intelligence, not luck, not even opportunity. It was what they trained their minds to dwell on, day after day. One man thought of possibilities. The other thought of problems. One man believed in his power to grow. The other believed he had none. The difference was thought. If you're listening now, let this be the beginning of a new journey for you. If the voice you hear is resonating, if the ideas you've just begun to consider feel like truth trying to break through, then I invite you to subscribe to this message, not just on the screen, but in your soul. Make a decision right now to engage with this fully. Like this video so others who need it may find it too, and let your journey into the power of thought become not just a theory, but a transformation. You may have heard the ancient proverb, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." It's a statement not just of belief, but of law. And like all great laws of nature, it works whether you acknowledge it or not. The law of gravity does not require your permission, nor does the law of thought. Whether we think constructively or destructively, the law goes to work. Your life becomes the exact mirror of your inner patterns. If you entertain thoughts of lack, you will experience lack. If you dwell on thoughts of confusion, your world becomes uncertain. But if you fill your mind with peace, abundance, clarity, and purpose, those will begin to reflect outward in your results. This is not magic. This is the mind working in partnership with the universe. What you think, especially with repetition and emotion, the subconscious accepts as truth. And what it accepts as truth, it moves heaven and earth to express in form. Let me ask you something. What do you think about all day long? When you're walking to work or driving your car, what occupies your mind? Most people let their minds drift, unaware that every idle thought carries creative power. Thoughts are seeds and the mind is the soil. The soil doesn't care what you plant, it will return poison as generously as it returns wheat. The mind will grow whatever is sown within it, whether doubt, fear, indecision, or love, power, and purpose. You and I are always planting. The only question is, are you planting weeds or are you planting greatness? The one who disciplines his thoughts disciplines his outcomes. A man once told me, "I wish I could just erase every bad belief I've been taught." I told him, "You can. Start by replacing them. Starve the weeds. Water the seeds. It's that simple, and it's that hard. And that's why most don't do it." Now let me give you a practice that works. Take a card, write on it your clearest, most desirable goal. Not two goals, just one. Something worthy of your time, something your soul reaches toward. Write it down in clear, direct language. On the other side, write this affirmation, one that countless men and women have used to reshape their lives. I am one with wealth and wisdom, free of fear and doubts. Carry this card with you. Read it morning, noon, and night. Look at it when you rise. Reflect on it as you work. And just before bed, close your eyes and see yourself already living that truth. This is not a game of tricks. It is the deliberate redirection of your inner conversation. Over time, the mind begins to believe, the belief begins to command, and your world begins to rearrange itself around your inner image. That is the power you carry. That is the power of trained thought. The reason so few do this is because it's deceptively simple. And the modern world, filled with noise and distraction, teaches us to chase complexity. But success does not come from complication. It comes from mastery of the fundamentals. The greatest achievements in life came not from random bursts of energy, but from simple truths applied consistently. The idea that your mind becomes what it is fed, that you are not a passive receiver but a conscious creator, is not new. It is ancient, and yet it is ignored by millions every day. We feed our bodies 3 meals a day, but let our minds starve. We guard our homes from intruders, but let toxic thoughts roam freely through our heads. That must change if you want your life to change. Your external world is not your prison. It is your projection. This is the turning point, the moment where everything begins. Not because I said so, but because you decided to listen. You decided that your thoughts are not your enemy, that they are not random, that they are trainable, and more than that, that they are sacred. Every thought is a command to the subconscious. Every belief is a blueprint. When you realize this, you no longer tolerate mental poverty. You stop feeding the doubts. You begin to speak differently, act differently, walk differently. The world notices. Opportunities begin to unfold. People ask, "What's changed?" And you'll smile because you'll know it began with a single thought that you refused to let go of, that you repeated like a prayer, that you trained like a muscle, and that thought became your world. You see, most people think the mind is something to be fixed, something faulty, something broken. But the mind doesn't need fixing, it needs focus. A camera captures what it is aimed at. So does the mind. Aim it at chaos, and chaos will be captured. Aim it at beauty, and beauty will be seen. The moment you take responsibility for your focus is the moment you take responsibility for your future. You are not the victim of thought. You are the master of it. But mastery requires practice, repetition, discipline, and belief. And that is why we begin with this test, this decision, this first step into a larger world. So let me leave you with this law, one that has echoed across centuries and is now being spoken to you directly. You become what you think about. Write that below. Comment it. Say it. Etch it into your mind until it's as familiar as your own name. Because the moment you begin to live by that law is the moment your life begins to obey it. Every day, from the moment we wake to the moment we sleep, our thoughts are writing the script of our lives. Whether we know it or not, we are always broadcasting, always projecting, always shaping the invisible forces that form the visible world. And yet so few realize that this power is not random, it is governed. Governed by laws, just as the planets are governed in their paths and the tides in their pull. And just as we would never blame the tide for rising or the sun for setting, we must stop blaming our circumstances when it is our thoughts that have quietly but faithfully constructed the life we now live. When we accept this, everything changes, because the same mind that created the mess can create the miracle. The same thought that dragged us into doubt can be reversed, rewritten, and repeated until it becomes a stairway leading upward. But it begins with awareness, with observation, with the quiet decision to take control. When you first begin to train your thoughts, you may find resistance, not from the world, but from within. The old voice will whisper, "This won't work. You've tried before, this is just positive thinking." But let me remind you, a thought repeated becomes a belief, and a belief, once accepted by the subconscious, becomes your reality. So when you feed your mind with new empowering thoughts, the old beliefs will try to defend their territory. This is not a sign to stop, it is a sign that you're on the right path. Imagine cleaning a room that hasn't been touched in years. Dust rises. Clutter is revealed. It gets worse before it gets better. But you do not stop. You sweep. You polish. You organize. And eventually the space becomes something new. Clear. Purposeful. Peaceful. So too with the mind. Train it. Stay with it. The discomfort is the doorway. Walk through it. I once knew a man who kept a journal of every negative thought he caught himself thinking. For 30 days he became his own mental watchman. At the end of each day he reviewed the list, not to feel ashamed, but to understand what he was allowing into the fertile ground of his consciousness. Then he began replacing each negative thought with a new one, deliberately chosen. "I can't" became "I'm learning." "This is hard" became "I grow stronger through this." In time, he didn't need the journal. His mind began doing the work for him. He had trained it like a muscle. And just like a body changes when exercised, his reality changed when his thoughts were redirected. You can do the same. You don't need anything special, just the willingness to observe, to choose, and to persist. Let's take a moment and consider this. Every emotion you experience is the result of a thought. Think about that. Fear is not something that appears on its own. It's born from a mental image, perhaps of failure, or rejection, or uncertainty. The same is true for confidence. It begins with thought. Picture yourself succeeding, repeatedly, and eventually you feel certainty. You walk taller, speak stronger, move deliberately. The feeling follows the thought, but most people try to change their emotions without addressing the thoughts that cause them. It's like trying to fix a broken lamp by polishing the bulb. You must go to the source, the circuit, the origin, and that origin for all our emotions is thought. So if you want to feel different, think differently. Think on purpose, with precision, with intention, not passively, not reactively, but proactively. There's another reason most never gain control of their thoughts. They confuse awareness with obsession. Let me explain. To direct your mind does not mean to overthink. It does not mean to ruminate. It means to aim. A well-trained mind is quiet when it needs to be and focused when called upon. It's not scattered nor is it loud. It is steady, still, and sharp. Most minds today are not sharp, they are noisy, always on, always anxious. But when you train your thoughts, when you begin to govern the mental traffic, you begin to experience a quiet power. You start choosing which thoughts are worthy of your attention. You stop reacting and start responding. This shift alone can double your productivity, triple your peace of mind, and unlock clarity that was buried under the noise. Silence, you will find, is not the absence of thought. It is the mastery of it. Now let me speak to you as a friend, not just a guide. There will be days when you slip, when the thoughts come flooding in. Old doubts, old fears, old labels. That is normal, but it is not final. The battle of the mind is won through persistence, not perfection. Each time you bring your attention back to your goal, back to your truth, you strengthen the path. It's like walking through tall grass. At first, the path is unclear, but walk it again and again, and soon a trail forms. Eventually, it becomes the only way you walk. That's what repetition does. It replaces struggle with structure, effort with instinct. So on those difficult days, remember this. Progress is not measured by how few times you fall, but by how many times you rise. I want you to begin a simple exercise. Every morning, as soon as you wake, before your feet hit the floor, declare one powerful thought. It can be the same each day or different, but it must be positive, personal, and present. Something like, I am calm and in command of my life. Or, today I build the world I desire. Speak it out loud. Let it become your morning ignition. This is not just feel-good fluff. It's mental programming. The first thought of your day sets the tone for the hours that follow. And if you start with fear, with frustration, with indifference, that becomes the rhythm of your day. But if you start with power, with peace, with purpose, then everything changes. Try it every day without fail for 30 days and watch what unfolds. We must come to see that reality is not fixed. It is flexible, moldable, influenceable. And the tool we use to mold it is not brute force. It is mental discipline. It is holding a vision in your mind so clearly and consistently that the world begins to align with it. Some call it faith. Others call it mindset. I call it the law, because like all laws, it works without exception. You do not become what you want. You become what you think. And thought, my friend, is a choice. So choose wisely, choose often, choose powerfully. And when you fall, choose again. Over time, you won't even have to try. It will become your nature. And so I ask you to reflect today, not with judgment, but with honesty. What have you been thinking about? What inner images have you allowed to replay? What phrases have you spoken to yourself about yourself? Are they worthy of your future, or are they relics of your past? The mind, you see, will follow whatever voice is loudest. Make sure it's yours. Make sure it's strong. Make sure it's built not from fear but from faith. The kind of faith that believes without needing evidence that a better reality is already forming because your thoughts have already begun to build it. There is a great tragedy playing out every day, and most never notice it. It is not found in the headlines or the news. It is found in the quiet minds of people who have never learned to think for themselves. You see, the average man believes he is thinking when in fact he is merely rearranging his prejudices. He absorbs opinions like a sponge, inherits beliefs from his environment, and goes through life reacting to the conditions around him. But thinking, true thinking, is a deliberate act. It is the disciplined focus of the mind upon a single purpose. It is the power to hold a vision despite contradiction, to remain calm despite pressure, and to continue forward despite the noise. That is thinking, and that is rare. But the few who do it, who learn to think deliberately, these are the ones who achieve the unimaginable. When you decide to think for yourself, you break a pattern older than most traditions. Because from the moment we are born, the world tries to think for us. Schools tell us what is possible. Friends tell us what is acceptable. Society tells us what is realistic. But you were not born to fit inside someone else's vision. You were born to create your own. And to do that, you must reclaim your mind. Begin questioning everything that limits you. Ask, who told me I can't? Where did I learn that doubt? Is that my thought or someone else's? This questioning is not rebellion. It is rebirth. You are not attacking others. You are simply refusing to carry their fear into your future. Because your life belongs to you, and you are responsible for what you allow to grow in the garden of your mind. There is a moment in every life when a person stops waiting for permission and starts writing the rules. That moment is called decision, and it is the foundation of mastery. When you decide what you want clearly, specifically, without apology, you give your mind an order, and the mind obeys. It begins scanning the world for answers, opportunities, solutions, and steps. But if you are vague, your mind is vague. If you are unclear, your life is unclear. A goal must be sharp. It must be exact. Write it, speak it, think it, visualize it, until every fiber of your being accepts it as real. That's not fantasy, that's faith. And the man with faith in a goal walks through life with a kind of quiet certainty that others cannot explain. Let me remind you of something. The mind always moves toward the most dominant thought. So if your dominant thought is fear, you will unconsciously drift toward what you fear. If your dominant thought is anger, you will find reasons to stay angry. But if your dominant thought is purpose, if your dominant thought is abundance, if your dominant thought is service, then you will find the world rearranging itself to support that. That is why what you think is not just important, it is everything. A man becomes what he repeats, and he repeats what he allows. So ask yourself today, what have I allowed? And more importantly, what will I now choose? One of the greatest disciplines I ever learned was to carry stillness with me. Not silence, but stillness. That quiet command of mind that does not panic, does not overreact, does not chase noise. In that stillness, I was able to think. And in that thinking, I was able to hear the deeper voice within. Not the voice of fear, but the voice of faith. Not the voice of the crowd, but the voice of vision. That stillness is available to anyone, but it requires training. Just as a soldier trains his reflexes, you must train your thoughts. And when you do, you will become immovable. Not cold, not harsh, but strong, calm, sure. And in that calmness lies the clarity the world is searching for. There are three kinds of people in this world: those who watch things happen, those who complain about what's happening, and those who make things happen. Which one you become depends on your mind. A reactive mind watches. A bitter mind complains. But a focused, trained mind makes. It builds, it moves, it leads, and it does so not by overpowering others, but by overpowering doubt. The strongest man in any room is not the one who shouts, it's the one who knows exactly where he's going and refuses to be moved from that path. That strength is available to you. It comes not from muscle, but from mental clarity, and clarity is born of thought. You must stop waiting for the world to give you signs. You must become the sign, the example, the demonstration of what a disciplined mind can produce. Let others look to trends, to luck, to fortune. You look inward. You sit with your mind like a craftsman with his tools, and you build something worthy, a life that reflects thought, not reaction, a life of design, not drift. And as you do, you will find yourself no longer chasing success. It begins to come to you, because success is always drawn to the man who knows who he is, where he's going, and what he stands for. Let me offer you a phrase I'd like you to write down and speak daily. My mind is my servant. I think in vision, I act in faith, I live in purpose. Say that each morning, each night, and each time you feel yourself slipping into confusion or fear, it will become your anchor, a reminder that no matter what is happening around you, the one thing you always control is what you choose to think. And in that choice lies your freedom, your future, and your fortune. You do not have to have it all figured out. You only need one thing, A clear mind guided by a clear purpose. With that, you are more powerful than 10,000 confused men. Let others rush, let others fear. You will walk slowly, steadily, boldly, because you know something most never realize. The mind, once mastered, is the most powerful tool in the universe, and you hold it in your hands. Use it well, think with purpose, and build a life that reflects that purpose in every detail. The most important journey you will ever take is not across land or sea. It is the journey inward into the depths of your own mind, because there in that unseen world is where your future is being written. Not with ink, but with attention. Not with noise, but with thought. If you learn to walk through your mind with awareness, to notice the patterns, the habits, the quiet beliefs, you will soon discover that much of what you once called fate was nothing more than unexamined thought. And this is why the disciplined mind is so rare. It requires us to stop, to reflect, to choose, but the reward for that choice is immeasurable. Because once you understand your own mind, you begin to understand the world. You begin to see that life is not happening to you, it is responding to you, and it always has been. Now let's talk about the power of repetition. Most people underestimate it. They think that change must be sudden or dramatic. But the mind does not work that way. The mind learns through rhythm, through rehearsal, through repeated exposure. That's why thoughts repeated often enough become beliefs, and beliefs repeated often enough become automatic responses. If you tell yourself each day that you're overwhelmed, your brain begins to expect stress. If you declare each morning that you are calm and in control, your nervous system begins to relax before the challenges even come. You see, the mind is always listening. It is recording, rehearsing, and replicating what you feed it most. That is why the words you say, especially to yourself, must be carefully chosen. Because words are not harmless. They are seeds, and what you speak, you grow. This is why affirmations are not wishful thinking. They are intentional planting, and you must treat them as sacred. An affirmation is a decision. It is the conscious act of reprogramming your subconscious mind with a new blueprint. But for it to work, it must be spoken with emotion, visualized with clarity, and repeated with discipline. That is how you move an idea from the surface of the mind into the soil of belief. Try this one, every morning. I am focused, fearless, and built for greatness. Say it before your day begins, and let your actions follow the direction of your thoughts. If you do this long enough, you will look back and barely recognize the old version of yourself. Not because you changed overnight, but because you changed consistently. Let us now speak about imagination. Imagination is the workshop of the soul. It is the place where you build the architecture of the life you wish to live. Every building was once an idea. Every book, a thought. Every invention, a vision. Nothing exists in the physical world that wasn't first created in the invisible one. And your imagination, if used wisely, is not just for dreams, it is for design. See your life as you want it to be. Picture yourself acting, thinking, walking, and speaking as the person you've decided to become. And do not just do this once. Do it daily. Let that image become so familiar that your current circumstances feel like temporary echoes of a reality already fading. Your mind believes what it sees most often, so feed it the future you desire. Most people think in reverse. They wait to feel good before they act. They wait to succeed before they believe. But the law works in the opposite direction. You must believe first, act first, speak first, and the results will follow. Just as a farmer plants the seed before he sees the harvest, so too must you invest the thought before the outcome appears. That is the law. It does not bend for anyone. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. That ancient principle governs the mind just as it governs the field. Sow clarity, reap results. Sow fear, reap resistance. You get back in life not what you want, but what you truly believe. And belief is shaped through repetition, emotion, and action. So begin today. Plant the right thoughts. Water them with repetition, and protect them from the weeds of doubt. Now understand this. The world will test your mind. It will challenge your focus. It will try to convince you to abandon your vision in favor of comfort, conformity, and convenience. But the man who masters his mind is not moved by the noise. He walks his path with stillness in the storm. He does not need applause to feel certain. He does not need agreement to feel clear. He is anchored in purpose, and that purpose becomes his compass. In the quiet hours of the morning, he reminds himself who he is, where he's going, and why he will not stop. And because he does this daily, nothing can stop him. not failure, not rejection, not delay. That level of mental conviction makes him nearly unstoppable. There's a quote I want you to remember. The mind, once stretched by a new idea, never returns to its original dimensions. Once you begin to expand your vision, your thoughts, your self-image, you can never go back, even if you fall, even if you fail. The expansion has begun, and with every new layer of thought, you rise. That's why growth often feels uncomfortable. You're stretching old beliefs. You're replacing outdated programming. You're upgrading your internal operating system. But if you stay with it, if you keep repeating, refining, and realigning your mind, then eventually, everything outside of you must adjust to match the power within. I want to give you another affirmation, one to speak when you feel tired, distracted, or uncertain. I command my thoughts. I build my world. I think only of what I wish to create. Let that become your mental shield. Let it become your reset button. Anytime fear creeps in, speak it. Anytime doubt appears, speak it. The mind listens, it remembers, and with enough repetition, that phrase will become your new baseline, calm, clear, and focused. Now you may be asking, how long must I do this? How many days before it begins to work? The answer is simple. Until it becomes natural. Until it becomes effortless. Until you no longer have to think about thinking because your dominant thoughts are already aligned with your vision. The same way a great musician no longer thinks about the notes, they become one with the music. That is mastery, and it is available to anyone who refuses to give up. You are the thinker of the thought, the builder of the belief, the captain of the mind, and from that place of responsibility comes your freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from limitation, freedom from mediocrity. Do not take that lightly. There are people who go their whole lives without realizing they had that power. But you know. And now that you know, you must act. Not someday, today. There is a moment in every person's life when they must decide whether they will live by reaction or intention, whether they will spend their days managing consequences or creating causes. The trained mind does not wait for opportunity. It creates it. It does not dwell in regret. It builds in vision. And once you understand this, once you step into the mindset of a cause-driven life, everything begins to change. You no longer wake up to survive, you wake up to design. You begin to see your thoughts as tools, your words as blueprints, your habits as bricks, and day by day you construct the life that once lived only in the imagination. That is the beauty of the trained mind. It becomes a builder, and what it builds is not random, it is precise, intentional, repeatable. But to reach this level of mastery, we must embrace one of the most misunderstood laws of achievement, the law of cause and effect. This law states that nothing happens by accident. For every effect you see in your life, your health, your finances, your relationships, there is a corresponding cause. It may be distant, it may be subtle, but it exists. And until you train your mind to trace the effects in your life back to their original causes, you will remain confused, reactive, and disempowered. The untrained mind blames, the trained mind observes, adjusts, and corrects. It learns from results without shame. It sees every problem as a pattern that can be reprogrammed. And that is what I want to show you now, how to stop being the effect and start becoming the cause. Let's start with a simple exercise. Think about one area of your life that currently feels out of alignment. Maybe it's your income, maybe it's your energy, maybe it's your confidence. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask instead, what consistent thoughts, habits, or decisions have led me here? Don't rush it, don't judge it, just study it. Your current results are feedback. They are telling you something about your patterns. And once you identify the pattern, you can change it. That is the beginning of true mental power, the ability to self-correct without self-criticism, to train your mind to see clearly, adjust quickly, and move forward powerfully. Understand this. Nothing in your life is stuck unless your thinking is. You are never trapped by your circumstances. You are only delayed by your unwillingness to think in a new way. The trained mind is agile, it is curious, it is willing to abandon the old story if it no longer serves the new vision. That's why growth feels uncomfortable. It requires you to confront the mental causes that produced your current life. But if you stay in that discomfort, if you keep asking, keep journaling, keep adjusting, then breakthrough is guaranteed. Because the law does not fail. As you think, so shall you become. As you act, so shall you receive. This is not philosophy. This is structure, and the trained mind is the engineer. But here's the key most people miss. The cause must be intentional. You cannot simply hope your way into success. You must decide your way into it. That means setting a clear intention every morning. It means choosing your thoughts like you choose your clothes, with care, with purpose, with vision. The person who trains their mind to begin the day with intention, to speak gratitude, to visualize outcomes, to speak affirmations, is programming the cause that will create the results. And when this becomes a ritual, not a reaction, life begins to mirror your discipline. The mind becomes your ally, not your obstacle. It begins to whisper solutions instead of doubts, and that's when your power becomes visible. Let me tell you about intention. Intention is not hope. Intention is a command. It is a decision spoken with clarity and backed by action. When you say, "I will double my income," and then align your thoughts, habits, and speech with that reality, you set in motion the cause. And with time, the effect becomes inevitable. Most people never experience this because they confuse desire with intention. Desire wants, intention moves. And it is that movement, daily, disciplined movement, that separates dreamers from designers. You are not here to wish. You are here to work. And that work begins in the mind. So here is your challenge. For the next 7 days, begin each morning by writing this down. Today, I am the cause. I create my results through thought, speech, and action. Then list the exact results you intend to create, speak them aloud, and then act in alignment. You will notice something shift, not in the world, but in you. You will begin to think before you speak, to pause before you act, to align before you engage. And that alignment is power. It means your life is no longer random. It is deliberate, and that is the mark of a trained mind. I want you to declare this now. Speak it, write it, own it. I am the cause. My life obeys the direction of my thoughts. Let this become your new foundation. Let this be the law that governs your days. When something goes wrong, don't flinch. Revisit the cause. When something goes right, reinforce the cause. This is the feedback loop of mastery. It means nothing is wasted, no mistake, no delay, no detour. Everything becomes data. Everything becomes part of the design. And remember, the longer you operate as the cause, the more powerful you become. People will wonder why things seem to go your way, why you're always one step ahead. It's not magic, it's not fate, it's clarity, it's structure, it's repetition. It's the trained mind doing what it was built to do. Create. And when your identity is rooted in creation, you no longer fear the future. You build it. So from this point forward, you are no longer waiting, you are initiating. You are no longer reacting. You are choosing. You are no longer drifting. You are directing. And with every new day, you reinforce the same law. I am the cause. My life obeys the direction of my thoughts. There comes a time in every person's growth where knowledge must evolve into wisdom, where knowing what to do is no longer enough, and the real transformation lies in becoming what you know. This is the 6th stage in our journey, embodiment. You've trained your mind, gained clarity, cultivated discipline, mastered attention, and accepted your role as the cause. Now comes the moment when those principles must become flesh, when the thoughts you think show up in how you speak, walk, carry yourself, and move through the world. Because until your mindset becomes your movement, the change remains theoretical. And theory never changes lives, only practice does. The trained mind does not just think differently, it lives differently. And the way you live, your habits, presence, tone, rhythm, is what communicates your power long before you ever say a word. Embodiment begins with congruence. That means alignment. The same message must be playing in your mind, flowing from your mouth, and showing up in your daily actions. When these three are aligned, thoughts, words, and behavior, you become magnetic. People feel it. They trust it, they follow it. But when they are misaligned, you create friction. You think one way, speak another, and act in contradiction. That lack of congruence is why so many people feel scattered. It's why success doesn't stick. Their thoughts want progress, but their actions reflect confusion. Their words declare goals, but their habits whisper doubt. The solution is not more effort, it's more integrity. And integrity begins when you decide to embody your philosophy, not just admire it. So how do we embody a trained mind? First, by creating identity-based habits. You do not just go to the gym, you become someone who honors strength. You don't just read, you become a person of wisdom. You don't just make money, you become a master of value. This shift in language changes everything. The trained mind doesn't say, I need to do this. It says, this is who I am. Because identity is stronger than willpower. It's more reliable than mood. And once you start acting in harmony with your highest identity, the gap between intention and action disappears. You no longer fight to stay motivated. You are moved by who you've decided to be. Let me give you something to say each morning. It's a grounding phrase that reinforces embodiment. I do not perform, I become. Speak that to yourself. Let it settle. You're not here to impress. You're not here to prove. You're here to embody, quietly, powerfully, unshakably. And that embodiment is what gives your voice weight. It's what gives your walk presence. It's what makes you unfazed when the world throws distractions your way. You've done the inner work, and now the outer world begins to reflect it, not through noise but through command, not through effort but through energy. Another principle of embodiment is emotional regulation. You've trained your thoughts, now train your state. How do you show up when things don't go your way? How do you respond under pressure? The trained mind understands that emotion is energy. It must be directed, not denied. When anger rises, you pause and redirect. When fear whispers, you breathe and refocus. The goal is not to suppress emotion, but to channel it toward your outcome. That is emotional embodiment, not being controlled by feelings, but using them as fuel. And once you master that, you become unshakable. People can sense it. Life's chaos does not move you because you are anchored inside. Let's talk about language. Every time you speak, you reinforce identity. Every phrase you utter either confirms or contradicts your future. So choose your words like you would choose ammunition. Deliberate, clear, and aligned. Eliminate weak language. No more I hope, I'll try, or maybe someday. Replace it with I am, I will, and this is done. These aren't just semantics. They are signals to your subconscious. They tell your nervous system what to expect. And the more you speak in alignment with your vision, the more natural it becomes to act in harmony with it. Embodiment means speaking as if the result is already yours, not arrogantly, but with certainty. And now we address presence. Presence is the residue of embodiment. When you enter a room, people feel you before they hear you. That's not about charisma, it's about alignment. It's about a mind that is not divided. A person who is congruent in thought, word, and behavior emits power. They don't need to talk much. Their energy speaks. That's the result of embodiment. You stop chasing validation. You start radiating authority. You don't audition for approval. You arrive with clarity. And the most powerful people in any room are rarely the loudest. They are the most integrated. They don't perform power, they are power. So how do you reinforce this daily? By setting rituals of identity. Start your day not with chaos, but with calibration. Speak your law. Visualize your future. Review your standard. And then step into action with intention. Every moment of your day becomes a choice. Am I acting as the version of me I'm becoming, or am I reverting? There is no in-between. And the more often you choose alignment, the more solid that version of you becomes. Until eventually it is no longer something you're trying to become. It is who you are. Let me give you your embodiment law for today. Write it, speak it, comment it below. I am the living expression of my vision. I do not act, I align. Let this become the phrase that recalibrates you every time you're tempted to shrink. Every time you're pulled toward distraction or performance, remember who you are and return to center. Because the goal was never to achieve your dream, the goal was to become the person who lives it naturally. The trained mind does not chase results, it aligns with them. And embodiment is the final link in that chain. When you speak what you think and act as you speak, you become unstoppable, not because you try harder, but because there is no contradiction in you. That is where real freedom lives. That is where peace is found. And that is the life reserved for those who choose to train their mind and live it. There is a hidden force, quiet but relentless, that determines whether all your training takes root or fades. It's not motivation. It's not opportunity. It's not even talent. It's environment. You can train your mind all day long, build discipline, embody identity, and take full command of your thoughts. But if your environment contradicts your growth, it will eventually erode your progress. Why? Because the mind is not only shaped by intention, it is shaped by exposure. What you see, hear, and feel repeatedly becomes familiar, and what becomes familiar becomes comfortable. The tragedy is that many people sabotage their future not because they are weak, but because they are surrounded by low standards that whisper them back into mediocrity. The trained mind must be protected, and protection begins by mastering your environment. Let's define it clearly. Your environment is anything that consistently enters your awareness. Your circle, your workspace, your phone, your media, your routines. These are not neutral. They are shaping your identity with every interaction. If you are surrounded by distraction, you will lose clarity. If you are surrounded by doubt, you will question your vision. If you are surrounded by low energy, you will begin to dim your own fire. The untrained mind accepts this passively. The trained mind curates with intention. It removes what dulls. It invites what sharpens. And this is not about arrogance, it's about alignment. You're not better than anyone, but you are becoming someone. And that becoming requires boundaries. One of the most important shifts you can make is this. Stop trying to change within environments that reinforce the old you. You cannot outgrow the gravity of your surroundings if you remain emotionally tied to them. Yes, loyalty matters, but so does evolution. You must ask yourself, does this environment call me higher or keep me anchored? And that question applies to people, places, conversations, even habits. The path to greatness is often not about more effort, it's about better soil. Even the strongest seed cannot grow in poisoned ground. So ask yourself daily, am I training in a space that reflects my future or one that echoes my past? Let's make this practical. Begin to upgrade your inputs. Start your day with voices that challenge you. Read books that elevate your thinking. Listen to people who reflect your standards, not just your history. Create digital boundaries. Clean your space. Replace background noise with intentional silence or inspiration. These may seem like small changes, but the mind notices. And when your environment reinforces your identity, your training deepens. You stop fighting resistance. You begin to flow in alignment, and momentum builds, not by force, but by consistency. Because now every aspect of your world speaks the same message. This is who you are becoming. Now let's address your circle. Your circle is not just your friends, it is your mirror. Show me your 5 closest relationships, and I'll show you your next 5 years. This is not judgment, it's principle. People either amplify your vision or dilute it. They either sharpen your edges or soften your standards. The trained mind is selective, not snobbish. It understands that connection is sacred, and proximity is power. So build a circle that speaks life. People who hold you accountable. People who remind you of your law. People who are not intimidated by your growth, but inspired by it. And if such a circle does not yet exist, become it. Because the fastest way to attract the right tribe is to become undeniable in your pursuit. Environment also means habit. The spaces you occupy daily, your desk, your car, your phone screen, should reflect the order of your inner world. Clutter breeds confusion. Disorganization breeds delay. But a curated space signals clarity. And when your outer world reflects your inner commitment, your mind responds in kind. It says, we're serious now. And that seriousness builds self-trust. You start to believe yourself more. You keep your word more. And every win, no matter how small, compounds into identity. You are no longer just thinking differently, you are living differently. And your environment confirms it. I want you to speak a new law. Comment it, write it, post it. I guard my environment as sacred. I only grow in soil that feeds my vision. This is not a suggestion, it's a command. Because you are not just building habits, you're building a world that reflects your future. A world that makes your goals feel normal, not foreign. And when you live in that kind of world, your training accelerates. Your belief solidifies. Your results multiply. Not by accident, but by design. Let me offer you a warning. The moment you upgrade your environment, resistance will come. Old friends may question you. Distractions may intensify. Doubts may whisper louder. That's normal. Growth activates contrast. And the contrast is not here to stop you, it's here to test your seriousness. Will you choose alignment over approval? Will you choose vision over comfort? Will you walk alone for a while if it means standing taller later? These are the tests the world gives to those who dare to change, and your answers determine your altitude. But here's the good news. Once you choose intentionally, once you set your standards and refuse to lower them, the world begins to reshape New people appear. Opportunities surface. The right voices find you, not because they weren't there, but because now you are there. You've become the version of yourself that can see them. And that's the secret. The moment you upgrade your environment, your awareness expands. And with expanded awareness comes accelerated growth. So take inventory tonight. Ask yourself, what needs to be removed? What needs to be introduced? Where am I most influenced? What am I consuming daily? And then adjust, not perfectly, not all at once, but decisively. Because the trained mind does not just think better, it lives better. And it does so by design, not default. You've now walked through 7 layers of transformation. Discipline, attention, clarity, identity, repetition, environment, intention. But none of these mean anything without one final force: persistence. Persistence is the glue that binds thought to result. It is the proof that you believe in your vision more than your obstacles. It is the one trait that levels the playing field regardless of background, intelligence, or circumstance. Because life, at its core, doesn't reward those who start fast. It rewards those who refuse to stop. And when you train your mind to persist, you become unshakable. Not because you always win on the first try, but because you outlast everything that once stopped you. Persistence is not just what gets you through the door, it's what keeps you in the room until the breakthrough comes. Understand this, most people don't fail because they didn't have a good plan. They fail because they quit before the plan had time to bear fruit. They didn't persist through the boredom, through the plateau, through the quiet moments where nothing seemed to be happening. The untrained mind interprets silence as failure, but the trained mind knows it's all part of the process. The harvest comes after the quiet season. The transformation happens after the repetition feels redundant. That's where most give up, and that's where you double down. Because the mind, once trained to persist, begins to ignore distractions. It locks in, it moves forward like water, quiet, constant, and unstoppable. There is a difference between motivation and resolve. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes, but resolve is structural. It is who you are, not what you feel. And resolve only grows through repeated decisions to stay when it's tempting to quit. Every time you persist, even in the smallest way, you stack another layer of identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who doesn't stop. And that belief becomes armor. It becomes a weapon. It becomes the very thing that sets you apart from the 95% who start, stall, and repeat the cycle of almost. But not you. Not anymore. Because you've been training for this. You've built the mental muscle to keep going, especially when the excitement fades. Let me share a law with you that very few understand. Success does not arrive. It is allowed in by repetition. That means you must persist long enough for your identity to align, your skill to sharpen, and your environment to reflect your growth. Most people knock on the door once, then leave when no one answers. But the trained mind knocks until the hinges break off. It keeps showing up, not because it's desperate, but because it knows the door leads somewhere worth entering. Persistence is not about effort alone, it is about faith. Faith in the unseen. Faith in the process. Faith in the fact that if I do not stop, I cannot lose. There is a deeper reason why persistence matters. Each time you push through resistance, you rewrite your internal story. You send a message to your subconscious that says, "We are not who we used to be." And that story begins to shape your self-image. It makes you more courageous, more decisive, more resilient. You stop second-guessing. You stop retreating. You begin to operate from certainty, not hope. And people can feel that. The world responds to persistence the same way it responds to confidence. It moves out of the way. Not all at once, but slowly, steadily, and then suddenly. Now hear this clearly. There is no substitute for staying the course. None. Talent won't cover inconsistency. Passion won't replace discipline. Even vision won't matter if you stop chasing it. But the one who persists, that person becomes inevitable. That person builds a body of work. That person earns compound respect, compound skill, compound results. Persistence turns average men into giants. It turns good ideas into generational change. And it turns temporary effort into permanent transformation. The question is never, can I do it? The question is, will I stay with it long enough to become the person who does it? Let's end this journey with a challenge and a law. Comment it, speak it, etch it into your daily ritual. I do not stop. I do not stall. I arrive because I refuse to quit. Let it live on your mirror, on your lock screen, in your thoughts, because when all other strategies fail, persistence will still work. And when all other voices fade, the one that keeps speaking is the one you've trained, your own. Let that voice be the voice that pulls you back to center. That reminds you why you started. That says, keep going, this is who we are now. Persistence is not heroic, it's consistent, it's quiet, it's usually invisible to everyone but you, but it is sacred, and it's what turns the trained mind into a legendary one. Because when you add persistence to clarity, discipline, embodiment, and environment, you no longer need motivation. You are the momentum. You no longer seek opportunity. You create it. You no longer hope things work. You make them work. And that is the life reserved for the few who do not shrink when it gets hard, but rise. So here we are, the final step, the last law, the code that binds the journey together. I persist until it works, until I win, until the vision is real. Let that be your rhythm. Let that be your prayer. Let that be the law that separates you from the crowd. Because when the world forgets how powerful thought can be, you will remember. And when others fall back into the noise, you will rise in silence, with your mind trained, your purpose clear, and your path unshakable. And if this journey has reminded you of your power, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this video, send it to someone who's ready. Comment below with the law that hit your soul, because the more of us who think this way, the more of us who train this way, the more we shift the world, not with force but with intention.